Thank you for joining me on Lizzie's workshop. Today I'm starting off with just a plain canvas that I got in a pack of 7 from Michael's. It was just 11 by 17, I believe, or 11 by 14. And just starting out by covering it in an acrylic gel, just a matte acrylic gel. I think my brand is Golden. And the person that I am making this for, it's a married couple, and the husband is an engineer, and so I thought, how fitting would that be in a brand new house for them to have the background of this to be the blueprints of a house. So I've done the blueprints and the side drawings and all that kind of stuff, and I've just, stole the images off of the internet, printed them off, and away we go. I'm not too concerned about copyrights and so forth when I do this kind of thing, because most of the time it gets covered up, or I don't actually use the design or the actual image that I print. I always modify it in some way, so it isn't the copyrighted or the stolen image once I'm done with it. So like this, I'm just ripping it all up and using it as kind of a scrap paper. I wanted to originally have a real blueprint, but the only blueprint paper that I had landscape architect drawings on it and not engineering drawings. So I had to improvise by printing off the internet. And all I'm covering this with is the acrylic matte gel from Golden. And I'm drawing it real quick because I want to keep going. And this stuff usually dries pretty quick on its own, but because I layered on the acrylic gel and then I layered on the paper and then I put on another layer of gel, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just make sure that it's all nice and sealed. So I used the heat gun. Now I'm just covering it in a layer of gesso because the images that I put on there were quite they were quite distinct and quite solid, and I didn't want the lines to be so heavy. And then when I put because the ink is water-based, when I put the acrylic gel over top, it kind of pulled the color a little bit. So I ended up with a lot of reds being dragged across the background, and I didn't want that either. So now I've just covered it in a very, very thin layer of gesso, and I also sprayed the gesso with water to thin it out even more because I don't want to cover the background. I just wanted to mute that dark blue a little bit. And now I was going to use my watercolor, but I decided that I'd try out my gelatos instead. So I've used 2 shades of gelato and 1 shade of blue gelato, and 1 shade of green gelato. And I'm getting it wet, and then I'm, making it move and stuff like that, but it's not really doing what I wanted to do. And then I got to a point where I just absolutely loved it, and then I kept moving when I shouldn't have. So I'm having trouble with the grass. I really wanted it to do a certain thing, and it's just not. So now that I'm looking at this and I'm watching the video, I wish I would have left the sky just like that. I really like that, just the way it is. But I made some more modifications to it later on. I end up putting the green on the bottom about 4 or 5 times until I get it to where I want it to. And yeah, see, I've added a little bit more blue in there, right where it was so pure and white, and I should have just left it with the nice white clouds. But, oh well, turned out great. So now I'm just grabbing a piece of tracing paper, and I'm drawing the image of a woman, because the person who inspired this, I was making wedding invitations for her sister, and she came over to help me out with the assembly line process. And a lot of the conversation that we held had to do with how much she loved her pumpkins and how amazing her pumpkins were in her garden, and how proud she was of basically the first year of pumpkin growing. And she was very, very proud of her pumpkin patch. So I heard all about this pumpkin patch every time she came over to work on these invitations. And with her having previously been in ballet, it just kind of inspired me to do this, pixie type girl kind of gardening and dancing through the garden in her rubber boots amongst the pumpkins. And I had that image in my head for about a month now, and I just thought, oh, you know, if it's going to be in my head for a month, I better just do it. So I did. And so I really liked the thought of her in rubber boots and her gardening gloves and dancing around in the garden. So that's what I did. So, yeah, her husband is an engineer, and he's been renovating the basement as well. So it kind of worked out really well for me to use the blueprints of a house in the background, because they're just about finished their renovations. And then she did the gardening this year, and they've just been so excited about all their new beginnings and all their exciting changes in their lives. So I wanted to just make a quick dress here, and I'm just layering all the different colors because I want it to have all the different wave of an actual skirt, and I wanted it to have all kinds of different colors, obviously. So I went and cut all the pieces out, and then I'm just setting it aside afterwards because I need to go move on. So I've cut out the boots and the gloves, I've cut out the components of the skirt. Now I'm going to cut out the components of the body parts that are going to be in pink. So the arms, the legs, the face, that's all going to have to be cut out of here. And then there's, what I'm cutting out of the green is the shirt and the shoulder for the shirt. And then once I have all those components, I need to go and find a light pink that will work well for the skin tone. So here we go. I found that strip of pink in my scraps bin, drawer, whatever. So this project, it took me a good 8 hours from start to finish. I had to sift through 8 hours of footage in order to knock it down to what does it end up being, about 25 minutes. But yeah, it seemed to work out not too bad. So this is 10 times fast of what you're seeing. So what I did in order to create some depth within each layer is I just took my sponge dauber and I grabbed some orange, I don't know if that's orange, it's called Hello Honey, I think that was Hello Honey. So it's kind of an orangey yellow, but maybe it's, it's either the Stampin' Up! Ink pad called Pumpkin Pie or the one that's called Hello Honey. And I suspect that it's Hello Honey, but it seems a little bit too orange for that. So I don't know. So yeah. So all I'm doing is I'm basically distressing all the edges of every single component of this with the same color. It kind of allows it to become like tie it all together with that color arrangement. Even the face and skin. And I chose not to put any facial features on this face. I chose just to leave them as, you know, just the shapes, because it gets too personal otherwise. Excuse me. And then I had this hair, and I really liked this hair, but I just couldn't figure out how to attach all of it. And if anyone's got any ideas on how to attach this in a better fashion, that would be really, really great. Because then I couldn't figure out how to get the thickness and the depth, and I didn't want to put on like lots and lots because I knew it would just kind of be flimsy and fall off. So then I tried the Chanel curls, and the Chanel curls were just too light because the person that inspired me, who it's theoretically supposed to be, she's got quite dark hair. So what I ended up doing was using the Chanel as a base and then adding on the curls on top. So now I'm assembling everything, and when I assemble the legs, I want to make sure that the knees are at the same distance so that the boots fit properly. It'd be weird to have one leg longer than the other one, or one expansive leg showing more than the other. So now I'm assembling the skirt, and I'm just using one of those you know, quick dry glues that you get at the craft store. Adding on the belt, inking that up a little bit. Then assembling it, seeing where it's going to sit and how it's going to sit on the drawing. on the background. So yeah, I really loved this project. I loved it so much that I almost feel like I need to make another one. But I'm hoping that maybe I'll come up with a different theme. It's always nice because I take a lot of pictures of what I make, so I can always create my own gallery on my wall if I really choose to. But instead of doing like a 3D kind of image, I would just do a print for myself. So here I'm using the Chanel as kind of a bulk. And then I start adding in the curls, but I just don't end up happy with the curls. And later on, I end up taking my heat gun and melting the black curls along the Chanel because I don't want them to be all springy and get torn off, and there's no way to really control them all that well. So I did do a couple things. I think I did them off camera though. I ended up covering it up and using hairspray and trying to solidify it a little bit with hairspray and trying to make it a little bit crunchy, and it ended up working out not too bad. So these pumpkins, I'm cutting the leaves out of one set of pumpkins and I'm cutting the pumpkins out of one set of drawings, and all this is stuff that I've printed off the internet. And once again, I'm not too worried about copyright because I'm not actually using the images for the project. I'm using them as templates for cutting. So I cut out all the different sizes of pumpkins and I cut out the different sizes of leaves, and then I went and chose my paper. So of course pumpkins are going to be orange. And then I did think about doing them in rainbow colors, but I thought orange is such a fabulous color, and remembered that this particular couple, their wedding color was orange. So I thought I'm going to stick with orange because I already know that they like it. So in order to create a little bit of depth to the pumpkin, I'm doing them in 3 dimensions, 3 layers. And so the bottom layer is going to be basically like a butterfly, and then the next middle layer is going to be a smaller butterfly, and then the top layer is going to be just an oval. And I'm going to do that with all the pumpkins, all these little things, so I end up cutting out quite a few. And then I'm going to do the same with leaves. I'm going to go and grab my green, and I'm going to take the one of the leaves and lay it over top, and then just give it a cut. So I cut out a whole bunch of those, and then I thought, oh, I want a whole bunch of little leaves. So I just used my acorn leaf punch from, I think it's an old Creative Memories one. And then I had to cut them from the acorn shape to fit in with the pumpkin leaf shape. So now I'm going to do is give each of the layers of every single pumpkin a distressed edge and shading with the Hello Honey. And after I'm done putting the Hello Honey on, I'm going to, go through and do pumpkin pie and put another layer on, just like that. And then to just highlight the edges and create a little bit more definition, I'm going to go right around the edges with a little bit of chocolate chip. And these are all Stampin' Up! Ink pads. Really enjoy my Stampin' Up! Ink pads. The only problem with this is that I'm covering everything and sealing everything with acrylic mediums. And when you take a water-based medium or a water-based dye medium and you try to cover it with an acrylic medium, what ends up happening is you end up moving the color and pulling the color. So you have to be very, very careful on how you do this. And I waited until I assembled everything, and then I went through and coated them all in a matte acrylic base, and then I coated them all in a glossy after the matte had dried. So I'm just using that glue again. It's like one of those, what's it called, Aleene's tacky glue kind of things. Just a craft store glue. So there's all the little pumpkins. And now I'm going to take some old olive ink and I'm going to go around the leaves just to give them a little bit of definition and a little bit of shape and a little bit of depth. And once again, I'm going to use the brown to kind of pull it all together. So here I'm using the glossy acrylic gel. You can use acrylic gel just as a sealer. You can use it also as something to make your paints go farther, or you can use it to move your paints and so on. In this instant, I'm doing that to create veins on the leaves and to hold the color there. If I were to go and use my paintbrush, by the end of like the third leaf or fourth leaf, I'd end up with my paintbrush being totally covered in green. So here I am. I'm going to spray her hair using hairspray. But I don't want to soak the paper of her, so it's going to, because that will damage her. So I did. I just quickly grabbed my hairspray and I assembled everything so that it would harden out. And I ended up just loving her hair, and I move it around about 150 times. And then once she was all glued on, I ended up melting her hair anyways, and now it's a nice solid mass of dark and light and all that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking and I'm adding brown to parts of her dress to kind of make her cohesive with the pumpkins and the leaves, because there's brown on them, so I want to tie it all together. And then I want to make sure that everything is sticking down properly and everything is nice and smooth, and all of her color is going to stay. So I'm just dabbing on an acrylic matte just to allow her to have her color stay in one place. So my next step is to add dirt, because I created all this green for her lawn and this blue for the sky, but pumpkins grow in the dirt. So I put the dirt on there with just the chocolate chip, the same brown I used for everything else, and a sponge dauber. And then I started drawing in the vines. Now, I knew that most of the vines would get covered up by the time that I was done the whole thing, but I wanted to make sure that it didn't look like I drew them in afterwards, and I didn't really have a plan yet for where exactly each of the pumpkins would go. So I wanted to make sure that by the time that all the pumpkins were on, it didn't matter whether the vines were all closed or what. It just mattered that they were under there, because pumpkins grow on vines. And I did want them almost all to be in the background. So this is what it looks like underneath the pumpkins. And I love it. So I'm probably going to end up taking a picture of that and then using this same idea in order to do another design later on. And that was just with one of those micron. Instead of black, I used green micron pens. So now I'm going to try and place her. I'm going to try and add her on. And all of this stuff is water or dye based, and it's all going to move as I paint on my acrylic mat. So I had to be a little bit strategic in here. I couldn't just, go for it. I had to develop a plan and just kind of be diligent and keep going and over and over and over again until everything was sticking the way I wanted it to. And it did take a lot to get things how I wanted them. And I had to pull things up a couple times, and then I wasn't smoothing with my brush because it had warped as it dried previously. And I just kept going and being really, really diligent with trying to get it to glue down properly, because I do want it to be very, very cohesive with the page and not fall apart later on. So, and then I went to do the dirt, cover it up and seal it in, and it just wasn't working because, of course, it's a water and dye base. So I ended up just drying the ink with my heat gun, and then I ended up dabbing on just in single strokes, just to get a layer on, just to get a protective covering layer on all of the green. And then I did it along the brown as well. The reason that I did the green first is because I didn't want the brown to run into the green or vice versa. So here I am, I'm just covering it all with glossy. So I'd already covered it all with just the regular matte, and now I'm covering the pumpkins with glossy, because the pumpkins should be shiny. They're kind of the showpiece of this canvas. So I wanted to make them all nice and glossy. But then I thought, oh, the leaves don't need to be glossy at all. So now I'm going to make sure everything's dry. And see, I accidentally ran the heat gun over top of her hair, and a whole bunch of it singed and dried. So I thought, oh, well, I might as well work with it. Happy accident. And it's all nice and crispy now, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I know that even when she dusts this later on, it's not going to cause any damage. But so I just could not resist this. I have all these like glossy or like all this glue, all this glitter glue, and I never use glitter glue. And I thought, you know, it's about time that I use glitter glue. And I thought shiny, shiny, glittery rubber boots, like jelly boots, would be so awesome. And I thought I cannot resist on this, on this project to do jelly boots. So I don't know if she's going to appreciate that once I give this to my inspiration for this one, but she inspired jelly boots, so she must be awesome, right? But so yeah, I just threw on the pumpkin, I added the leaves, and then I just kept going and going until I used up all the pumpkins. And I had placed them previously, but I wasn't too concerned of where I'd placed them, and I was thinking, well, it would be nice to have a plan. But when it actually came down to it, I just loved all the pumpkins, and I put so much work into all the pumpkins, so I decided to include all the pumpkins. And I'm actually all right with that. I really like how it turned out. The one problem that I did have is that I should have waited to do the jelly boots until after, but I was just so excited that I had to jump on it and do it. But I kept running my finger through it, and I ran some leaves through the jelly boots, and had to keep rearranging the glitter glue on the jelly boots. So yeah, I'm kind of just placing the leaves randomly. I just want to make sure that wherever there's a curlicue, I add a leaf, and then once that's done, I just add all the other leaves in wherever they fit. I wasn't too stressed out. It wasn't to any particular order. It wasn't, you know, this has to go here and that has to go there. I just wanted them all on there to be like a whimsical Pumpkinville, so to speak. I really had fun. This was a lot of work. Like I said, it was about an 8-hour project, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and I just loved how it came out, like almost exactly as my image in my mind wanted it to. So I can't get over how awesome it turned out. I wasn't sure how awesome it would end up being, and whether or not I'd be able to give it as a gift or what, but I just could not get over how awesome it turned out. So I end up naming this piece Home is Where the Pumpkins Grow, because she's growing pumpkins at home and so on. And it just seemed like the most beautiful title for this piece. And once I said it, I couldn't let it go. So Home is Where the Pumpkins Grow. And I'm using all different kinds of gel letters here, like they're from, I think the majority of them are from Recollections, different Recollections packages. In their scrapbooking section at Michael's, they have wood-mounted ones, rubber wood-mounted ones, and then they have the clear as well. So, and a lot of these I've had for a really long time, and some of them are brand new, so I wouldn't even know what year I purchased them in because it's just in the drawer. But yeah, so Home is Where the Pumpkins Grow. So now it just has to dry, and then I went over top of the inked letters just to fill in the holes, because sometimes when you ink things on canvas especially, or on Aida cloth or whatever, you don't get the full solid letters because of the depth of the canvas or the layers that you've put on. Here I'm just doing a touch-up. I ended up putting too much ink on in some spots, so I had to touch it up a little bit with, I used a marker to erase the black ink, and then I used the gelato to fix it. So here you go. Home is Where the Pumpkins Grow. Thank you very much for joining me on Lizzie's Workshop. I hope you've been inspired.